let's first of all get right to it, because one of the things he said right off the bat, Secretary Hegseth, was that we are setting a new standard with a new name, the Department of War, and here's why.
From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting, preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens.
Yeah, what? It's going to be about warfighting? When has it ever been about anything else? Now, you may have different opinions on how to do warfighting, and obviously that's the case. I talk about that a lot, about how we do it makes a big difference. But I mean, he's just saying that now we're going to focus on warfighting. And I can tell you from my nearly 21 years of active service and plus time in the reserves, over about a total of a 30-year period, that has always been the case. And it was always drummed into our minds, especially as an armor and an artillery officer, which I was at various stages of my career, at the cavalry when I was in the United States 1st and 2nd Cavalries. I mean, we were always at the front edge of the line. It was always about closing with and destroying enemy forces. It was never about anything else. Now, some may argue that this whole woke thing that happened, especially during the Obama and the Biden administrations, weakened that, and there's arguments to be made there. But even in those cases, it was still about warfighting. They just had different visions on how to get it done. So there's nothing new in that. So that was kind of an odd way to start. But sure, okay, why not? Let's go ahead and get to whatever he had next. Next thing he talked about was about those who do and apparently don't deserve peace.
As history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose, or any war that is thrust upon us.
Okay, I want to jump on that last part first, because there's a lot to unpack in that one there. But I don't know if that was a Freudian slip or what, but he said we will win any war we choose. His words. Any war we choose. That is an alarming statement right there, because I think that's exactly what he means. And I think that's what this administration means. They are looking, certainly lots of examples of that. We've already seen it physically take place both in Iran and in the Caribbean Sea. If we want to use force, we just will. And now then Trump changed the name. As he said in his remarks, it was at his behest that we changed it to the Department of Defense to the Department of War, because I want to be more on the offense. And since he's even made those remarks, that's what he's done by choosing to conduct lethal operations in the Caribbean Sea in violation of U.S. law, international law, and everything else. No one is stopping him. No one's saying hardly anything about it. Hardly even gets a blip. But now then you hear him actually say out loud, the wars we choose will win anything. You're not supposed to be choosing any war. And you talk about people who do and don't deserve peace. And the only ones who deserve peace are those who are willing to fight, etc. And then he starts talking about, pacifism and all this. When has anyone in the Department of Defense ever been a pacifist? I mean, that doesn't, it's the classic scarecrow issue here, or straw man or argument. You're making an argument that doesn't even exist. No one has ever been passive in the Department of Defense. Now, again, you can argue, well, these woke policies, or you're including this and you're not focusing on warfighting. There's some arguments to be made there. But even in that case, no one is talking about pacifism. No one. And those who other in the world, I mean, there are some people who can say, no, we focus too much, and this is in a general sense in the world. There are those who say, well, we focus too much on war fighting. We should focus on other things. Those aren't people in the Department of Defense, and those aren't generals who were sitting in that room. No one has ever said that. So I just found the whole thing a bit odd. And then, to declare that nobody deserves peace in the world. And that's just simply self-evidently untrue. You look around the world, there's 196 nations in the United Nations. And I mean, let's just look at Costa Rica. They don't even have a military. They don't even, and do they not deserve peace? They have peace. So that is just self-evidently untrue. And that's one example. You could certainly find scores, if not hundreds, of others. But what you don't want to get into, what we need to be afraid of and really alarmed at, is when someone says, we're going to change the name of our organization to the Department of War because we love war. And then he claims, and I think one of the previous shot that I had there, where, we love peace, we want peace, but we got to prepare for war, and we'll win any war we choose. So your actions and your words carry a lot more weight than the claim that, we really just want peace. That's what he said. Going on to the next one here. He said, one of the problems is, and this is kind of a theme throughout, that this, there's been too much political correctness, and you've been focused on the wrong things.
The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. Or as the chairman has put it, we are clearing out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors.
Ending the war on warriors. I mean, this is just a trope. This is nothing less than that. There's no war on warriors. No one, even in the woke culture, they still want to make what they called warriors in their view of it. They wanted to include more people, but they were always focused on their version of what a warfighter is. So there's no war on warriors inside the Department of Defense. It just wasn't the case. And to add that is just to add in division. And that was a theme here that he did, and President Trump did a whole bunch of times during his remarks, continuing to go back and look at the previous administration and trash them. The Department of Defense, the United States Armed Forces, are supposed to be and are avowedly apolitical. So don't bring in all your politics and literally trash everybody else who proceeded before then, because that creates division inside, because there are many in the armed forces that are liberal and follow the Democratic Party, and there are certainly many in the conservative and follow the Republican Party that are all in there. We're supposed to be pulling everybody together, whether that's race, religion, geographic differences in the country, educational differences. We're supposed to eliminate all that to create one team, one force that's fighting for the good for the entire country. That's supposed to be the objective, not to, I'm going to now try to split even inside of our organization, anyone who's liberal, and tell you that your job is at risk. And we're going to see that play out even more so in a minute. And then to say, and then basically highlight another group here. So that's adding division and negatively affecting warfighting capacity. So, and I doubt that that's going to be lost on a lot of these generals as well. I think that that's going to be something that comes up even more so. Then he gets into something he called the Golden Rule.
The new War Department Golden Rule is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit. Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops? Or alongside people who can't meet basic standards? Or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in? In a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, and warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no.
That is so patronizing and condescending, because he's basically telling these people, you haven't been doing this right. You haven't been making units that you would want your kid to be in. And so would you want these done? Well, of course not. Not only no, but hell no, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, first of all, those are conditions that are not decided by individual generals and admirals, Navy, Air Force, Marine, National Guard, all these groups. It's not their call to make. That's your call to make. It's the Secretary of Defense. It's the administration's job. It's the administrative leaders, has always been. That's their call. So whether it was Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, that was his call to make, and he made those calls. I disagreed with some of them. Many others do. I'm sure many in that room disagree with them, but that was their call. He was the Secretary of Defense. He did make the call, and whether they like it or not, we have civilian leadership of the military for a reason. So they had to implement those, even if they disagree with them, because that was the lawful order for the civilian leadership placed over them. Now, you want to change that? Cool, fair enough. If it's a good one, that's great. But even if I don't think it's great or they don't think it's great, if that's your policy, that's what you're going to have to follow. They will have to do it whether they want to or not. And that's how it's always been. That's how it's supposed to be. But for you to cast the blame on these guys and saying that you're going to have to change and start training the way you'd want to, I mean, that's insulting, because the majority of all the people who serve, even those who have views that are different from mine, they still have their heart right, that they're trying to do their best as they see it to have the best organization. Nobody has said, you know what, I bet we can diminish our warfighting capability if we do more woke stuff. Cool, let's do that. Nobody has done that. And if you don't like the policies that they have that they're trying to do, then change them. Fair enough. And if there are people in policy positions that are trying to implement things that you determine, because now you are the Secretary of War, it's in your prerogative and your power. You can replace them. You can do whatever you want. Fair enough. But don't blame everybody for obeying the law, because that's exactly what they're supposed to do and will need to continue doing. And you better hope that they do keep doing that, even those who were in that room who disagree with you on your policies. You still expect and demand that they will obey them as they should. But don't blame them for doing what they're supposed to do before that. Now we get into the dangerous territory here, because Secretary Hegseth is going to repeat something that I think is demonstrably untrue and is saturated with arrogance and pompousness. He says we are the creme de la creme on the planet militarily, bar none.
As President Trump has said, and he's right, we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. That is true, full stop. Nobody can touch us. It's not even close. This is true largely because of the historic investments that he made in his first term, and we will continue in this term.
Okay, wait a minute. Hang on. What about all this woke stuff? You're denigrating all your predecessors and all the people in that room who apparently are doing woke stuff that you don't like and you want to change. But yet you say that despite all of that, we are the most powerful military force on the planet, bar none. Nobody else is even close, which is a direct quote from President Trump. And that's self-evidently untrue. Look, the total army, let's look at the land forces. The total army is under 500,000 total active forces. So what that tells you is, in terms of actual combat power, it's a relatively small number. I would wager, I haven't done the figures recently, but somewhere around 200,000 maybe. Possibly not even that many, because you have so many institutional forces, you have training forces, logistics and supply and all kinds of other stuff. All that goes into the actual warfighter. So we have a pretty small active force as it is. And folks, we haven't done any kind of real war in decades. I'll go so far as to say nobody in uniform today, not very many people in uniform today have done any kind of, well, no, I will say nobody in uniform today has actually conducted a war against anything close to being even a near peer in terms of we're fighting a force that has a capable army, a capable air force, a capable navy, capable air defense capabilities, electronic warfare, satellites, all that stuff, a peer on peer, something close to that. Nobody in uniform. Maybe the last time it was even close was the Korean War. Even the Vietnam War doesn't qualify. The Desert Storm that I fought in, a tank-on-tank battle, that was one thing in terms of the battle itself. At a squadron level, I was in the 2nd Squadron, 2nd U.S. Cavalry. So we fought there. Terrific. That's great as far as it goes. But even that was against, they effectively had no Navy. They were poorly trained, poorly equipped. They had no Navy or Air Force for that matter, very limited air defense, very limited missile force, etc. And we cleaned their clocks because we were an incredibly well organized, trained, and equipped force going against somebody who was incredibly sloppy and poor. And then even in the anybody who is in the force today who's had any kind of maneuver warfare experience, the last one we had was in 2003 in the Operation Iraqi Freedom that went into Baghdad, and that was against a force that the one that I fought in 1991, and it was a full decade even weaker because of all the sanctions that have been leveled on it, et cetera, and so many had been decimated during the Desert Storm itself. So that's the only thing we've had. Everything since that time over the last 2 decades has been against like Taliban and bed sheets and flip-flops, as sometimes I call guys who have rifles, don't even have any formal armed forces. That's what we fought, or insurgents in Iraq, or we just blow up a bunch of stuff in Syria. We blow up a bunch of stuff of other insurgents in Syria or in Libya or all throughout Africa, a bunch of terrorist groups. That's it. So we don't have any experience in fighting somebody with a capable Navy, Air Force, air defense, missile force, drone force, especially, going against what it's like to be on the receiving end of large amounts of artillery and having to sustain something over time, like the Russians, like the Ukrainians. You have even the Chinese military, who has been paying a lot of attention to what's been going on in the Russia-Ukraine war and have made a lot of changes on their own. And we see that in how they're training at large level, much, much bigger than we are. So I would say at best we're in 4th place. And that's not a good place to be. But when you believe that you are the creme de la creme and that you dominate everybody else and no one else is even close, that leads to a presumptuous and pompous position that you might say, we're going to take actions here because no one can stop it. If you believe that, press, then you may get us into a war we should never fight. And again, circling back to your comment, we will win the wars we choose. It's not hyperbole to be warning about this. These two things together are a real problem. Okay, real quick here, let me go with a couple of other things. This is Hegseth. One other thing he said kind of toward the end, after setting up all the stages, saying there's no more wokeness, there's no more political correctness, you don't have to walk on eggshells and all this kind of stuff. Then he drops this bomb.
But I look out at this group and I see great Americans, leaders who have given decades to our great republic at great sacrifice to yourselves and to your families. But if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you should do the honorable thing and resign. We would thank you for your service.
That's good enough right there. Yeah. So he's just, firing a broadside across everybody. If you don't want to do the things I want to do, if you don't agree with the things I say, then you leave. So you're setting up a new political correctness. So now then, the Hegseth version of political correctness is in. And if you don't like it, then get the hell out. So you're replacing what had been the left wokeness and all that. And as I keep saying, I had a problem with a lot of that. But and we didn't like to have to live under it, the folks who viewed it from our perspective. But now you're just flipping the script, and now then you're condemning others in that group. And you're telling them, this is the new political correctness. Get on board or get the hell out. And that's just exchanging one bad way for another bad way. And again, I keep going back to you. Everything is supposed to center on apolitical. There shouldn't be any political correctness. There should only be military correctness. And it should apply equally to every member of the armed forces. And there should be standards, and they should be held up to it. And there should be consequences for failure. I'm 100% behind all that. That's what builds strong units. That's what builds strong armies. That's what builds strong armed forces. If you have that, everybody knows the standards, everybody's held to the same standard, and it doesn't shift depending on who's in the White House. Those are the things that go into building strong militaries, and that's something that people can get behind. This version here is just going to cause more division and more concern. and it's going to do nothing to actually make us more lethal and more powerful. And that worries me that he's talking about making us more lethal. I'm not sure that they have a good understanding for what that is. More on that later this afternoon. Doug McGregor is going to be on our show here in about 45 minutes. We'll be seeing him. He's definitely going to have something to say about that. You won't want to miss that. Last thing I want to show you here, though, is this was President Trump. As I mentioned, the reason I don't have any sound bites because it was just this long stream of conscious, just kind of rambling, low energy stuff. But I think this is a little more telling than it might appear. You know, ordinarily when Trump is announced, you have all these, you know, claps and shouts. And sometimes like when he's gone to some military organization, they have a lot of cheering. Watch how this one happened.
Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing, too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very... Oh, don't laugh. Don't laugh. You're not allowed to do that. You know what? Just have a good time.
So he's like, watch it. The President of the United States. Everyone just stood there. No one was clapping. No one was anything. So that kind of took him by surprise a little bit. And I wonder if the troops or the generals were aware what he had said apparently on the way over there. Axios was reporting that prior to leaving for this, he is equipped here. If you can put that full screen up there, he is reported to have said ahead of the speech that he would fire any generals he dislikes on the spot. So he doesn't like these guys. If he looks at them funny, he's going to go ahead and fire them. And then paired with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's speech urging military leaders to embrace the new MAGA military or resign. Yeah, I'm just not sure that's going to play well. Or the way this was orchestrated, Gary, if you could put that other full screen up there, the screen was set up to look like a Patton-esque thing. Patton's name was mentioned a number of times in here, and it was not by mistake that they literally set this up. That upper left-hand corner is there is from the famous movie Patton with George C. Scott, and you see they had Trump and then Hegseth before that trying to literally mimic the imagery. It's just kind of ham-fisted. I don't think that's going to really play well. We'll have to wait and see how that's going to go. But I wanted to give you a quick reaction on that. Because it just bottom line, apparently nothing of any substance was conveyed. Again, the only thing we don't know is if something was said off screen before they actually allowed the cameras to be turned on. We'll have to wait and see how that's going to turn on. But otherwise, folks, this was just a rah-rah speech to just tell everybody, hey, here's the new rules as we see it. Get on board or get the hell out. And I just don't think that's going to play well. But we'll continue to monitor that too and bring it to you. But for now, we'll let you go and be sure and join us here in about 40 minutes because I'm promising you, ordinarily you don't want to miss Doug, but especially today, you're not going to want to miss what Doug McGregor has to say on this topic as well as some other stuff with the Russia-Ukraine war. New developments there as well. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you then on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.